Greetings, hello, and welcome. Tonight we try time travel back to late November of the year 1890, as we have a reading between the Clash of the Titans, George Godfrey and Denver Ed Smith. Denver Ed Smith invaded America just the same as the Australians did. He was known as the Birmingham Man from England, and he invaded America a little bit earlier even than Peter Jackson in about 1885 range. He was over here. And Denver Ed Smith was one of the foreign fighters of these very early ages, as this has only taken place in the year 1890. And basically there was one man from Britain, England, Denver Ed Smith, and a few from New Zealand, such as Bob Fitzsimmons and Harry Lang, but although they fought out of Australia, all the other fighters were basically, the foreign fighters were basically from Australia, working under Larry Foley. So even though Denver Ed Smith isn't technically Australian, he was one of the fighters that invaded America also, as all these guys were trying to take on the very best Americans. And tonight we had one of the very best Americans fight him. We got Old Chocolate George Godfrey. So this is the second of 3 series I'm doing as his full fights. Just think of these as like a further reading, during your homework. You get a little extensive full version of the fight instead of a short recap. And tonight I'm gonna struggle a little bit, as I'm kind of gonna try and jump between 2 different articles and weave these together on the fly to get it to sound coherent, as there's parts I like in both of the newspapers. And so before we begin, I just wanted to do a quick little recap of my idea of Denver Ed Smith. I think he was a kind of a very misunderstood fighter. He was he'd be very young in his prime version, which would be 25, 26. You just think of a young, super strong, bigger than most light heavyweights at about 185. He was very similar to Hank Griffin. And, he did fall off the cliff rather quickly when he kind of put less interest into boxing. And at this point in his career, he's a very formidable. Denver Ed was one of the first people that featured the dawn of the black tights, as he would enter the ring with the black tights instead of boxing trunks. And a lot of people followed Denver Ed Smith's cue after that. And he was a very muscular man. He was a brute force, like a basic tough guy, landing one punch for every 2 that the other opponent might land. Poor defense, big power. And Denver Ed Smith was certainly one of the largest, most formidable guys, as he was pretty big for a light heavyweight. And he was rather muscular, and as you can see by some of these pictures, modern type of pictures from him, he was a very mean looking dude. I mean, he looked like he was like the last kind of guy that you want to meet in a dark alley, as he's gonna take you out. So he's a very tough, formidable force for the very scientific, known as the Professor George Godfrey, as we have 2 complete clashing styles happening. Here's George Godfrey defying age at 37 years old and still in his prime. Then you have the super green version. The only thing he really did was 5 rounds with Peter Jackson. The young green, brand new spanking heavyweight to fight the one of the great American fighters at the time, the scientific professor George Godfrey. Complete clashing styles. And we are going to do the reading for this. This is late November of the year 1890. George Old Chocolate Godfrey versus Denver Ed Smith is okay. We're going to do the readings here. Bear with me as I get these prepared. Like I said, I'm going to try and bounce between articles. So if I get an extended pause, I'm just trying to find my place in the article here. So this is Wednesday, November 26, 1890, from the Jersey City News. Some pugilistic stars are like the flight of a meteor. They are bright and move with wonderful velocity for a few moments, and then they disappear forever. Ed Smith of Denver was heralded as the man who was destined to vanquish the invincible John L. Sullivan. His admirers in the West had the opinion that he was the best man in the roped arena at the present time. To convince the Eastern sports that he was a star of first magnitude, he came here tonight and sought an engagement, and he received it. They considered George Godfrey, the clever colored fighter, as skillful enough to settle the aspirations of the talented Western pugilist, and the match was made. Smith may not disappear from pugilistic constellation, but he will not shine as brightly as he did before the meetings. The Massachusetts darky, known as Old Chocolate George Godfrey. Godfrey won, and he won easily. The 500 people who witnessed it parted companies with a $10 bill, and the majority were content as they saw a plucky man against a scientific fighter. It was not a knockout, nor did the beaten man quit, but he was in immense danger by the events that would unfold. An adequate force of police was on hand to make arrest had it finished that way. The ring was a small one, about 18 by 25, but the rear of the wall of the building formed one side of the ring. Smith carried superfluous flesh, while Godfrey trained hard. Godfrey's seconds, Hordery and Mahoney, worked hard and waited until the call of time, and then saved him from the exertion of getting up. The formality of weighing the gloves was gone through on the stage, and Police Captain Hayes examined the scales to see that the gloves did not weigh less than 5 pounds each. He was in charge of the stage. When the first round opened, Smith stooped as if to be a catcher, and a catcher can rustling bout. He came up after leading, however, and Godfrey landed a smart one with his left. Smith did considerable leading, but every time Godfrey countered with interest. The round ended with Smith going down before a left-hander planted on the neck. So, round one, Denver Ed Smith gets taught a lesson, and George Godfrey floors him right at the end of the round there. The second round was well contested. Smith ducked well and rushed in to make his shoulder and weight of his body tell as he gripped, pushed, and wrestled. Godfrey around the ring. Smith was puffing hard at the end of the round. Well, that's not a good sign, as this is the second round. Just give me a sec. I'm going to jump into the other article here. So that goes up through the second round. Oops. And we're going to examine this other article as we lead into the match here. One thing was shown conclusively, that there was no more gamey man than the Birmingham boxer that ever entered the ring. Godfrey was the cleverest man alive today, and he punished Smith almost as badly as he did Jack Ashton in Boston a year ago. And everyone thought at the time that the Providence fighter stood up enough to have put 10 men to sleep. But Denver Ed Smith, he seemed slow. He looked as though some superfluous tissues in the region of his stomach might have been taken off to his advantage. Godfrey had a good lead almost from the start. In the third round, Smith got in a stiff uppercut that dazed Godfrey, and a bet of 80-10 was made that he would win the contest. Denver Ed Smith. Smith's left eye was almost closed. His nose was cut, and he was bleeding. Godfrey's right eye was in distress at this time of the fight, as the fighters collapsed like titans in the center of the ring. In the fourth round, Smith made several vicious leads, but Godfrey was nimble and avoided them. Godfrey resorted to jabbing with his left, and his jabs told the story. It seemed every round that he would be Smith's last, as he came up at the call of time. In the 10th round, he got the chance he had been looking for. Godfrey rushed him back to the ropes, and he swung back and handed a blow twice on a very stunned Godfrey. He was too weak to launder hard after that, and Godfrey was there at the call of time. From that round to the end, Godfrey had it all his own way. Okay, we're going to read the Boston Globe here. While this was being done, Smith stepped through the ropes. Smith began to feel his opponent out. He carried himself much as a wrestler when looking for a hold. There was a marked contrast between the two. Every muscle in Godfrey's body stood out, and he appeared very cautious. Smith was the first to lead, sending his left to Godfrey's eye. Godfrey gave Smith a smart punch, and they left on the chin. They clinched but broke for a moment. Throughout the contest, both men fought fairly and were in good humor. They chaffed each other, and they did not appear in the very least to be worried about what was in store for them. Godfrey's left reaches Smith's wind and his right eye. Both blows were comparatively light. Then Smith landed on Godfrey's neck. The Englishman delivered a powerful left-hand swing on Godfrey's chin, but missed. Then he followed up with a smart left on the colored man's win. This made Godfrey stagger, but he soon recovered and dealt Smith a heavy blow behind the ear with his right. They were both warmed up by this time in the fight, and in the second round they went at it like red-hot style, throwing hammer and tongs at each other with reckless abandon. Godfrey had been told to be careful of Smith's right, and he kept well out of way of the dangerous member. Smith's left caught Godfrey on the ear. The black left caught Godfrey on the ear. The back sent his straight left to Smith's nose, and the latter kept away for a while. They did some terrific work at short range, and the black's superior in cleverness was soon apparent, for he landed blow after blow on the Brit's nose and wind. Near the end of the round, Smith swung a right and caught Godfrey behind the ear, and just for this time was called. Smith landed his right on Boston man's chin, and he lost his balance for a moment as Denver Ed Smith walked to his corner. Smith's left eye was swollen, but he looked strong and full of steam as he came out for the third round. Godfrey opened the ball with a stiff right-hander on Smith's ear. They clinched and resumed fighting at close quarters. This was Godfrey's long suit, as he put it, and Smith soon realized that as Godfrey fought from a distance and jabbed right in his face. Godfrey had his own particular way practically during the early part of the round, but Smith sent in two effective right-handers, and the black sent to his knees. So Godfrey down, and I think that's round 4. In the next round, several bets of $100 to $80 were made on Smith. Billy Mahoney took $80 worth. Smith started in at a fast pace, and it looked as though the contest would abruptly end as Denver Ed Smith chased Godfrey around the ring. Smith put in 3 left-hand blows which scored, but Godfrey kept out of the way of his right. At one time, it looked as though Godfrey was going in this round. Smith forced him to the ropes and sent in 3 hard punches, but the black extricated himself from what some thought to be a tight place. And in another minute, the tables were turned, and Smith was in the corner as Godfrey smashed him across the mouth and eye. For the first time during the contest, the men sparred for win in the 5th round, but neither had much time to replenish his supply of steam. Now we heard some comments between the fighters here. This is rather interesting. "You make a bloomin' good fight, you do," said Denver Ed Smith. "Hoss and Hoss," replied Godfrey with a smile. Both got in right-handers. "'Ard job," remarked Denver Ed Smith as he faced his opponent in the 6th. "So it is," responded the black. "We earn our money, don't we?" "You are right," answered Smith, swinging a left on Godfrey's neck. He sent his left to the Boston man's eye, which was almost closed. Godfrey kept sending straight left-hand blows straight on Smith's nose. The organs seemed to be a tender spot as blood was streaming down Denver Ed Smith's face. Smith kept away from punishment as best as he could and did some remarkable, clever ducking at Godfrey's leads. Godfrey continued to punch Smith's nose with his left in the 7th round, occasionally landing on the mouth and face. It was hard round, and Godfrey did some of his best work in this round, round 7. In the 8th, Godfrey started in to finish up his opponent, and the latter was tired. When time was called, Smith clinched his adversary frequently and waited for a chance to swing his right. The chance came, and he sent in a curious blow to the black's stomach, which almost bent him over double. Godfrey did not appear to be hurt, however, and he punished Smith terribly for the blow he had just delivered. Smith invariably was the first man to rise at the opening of the rounds, and he lost many seconds in this way. So it sounds like Smith went down there. In the 9th round, they clinched and Smith fell. Godfrey kept jabbing away at Smith's nose and forced the latter to the ropes. He hung over them for a moment, and then he tried the celebrated George LeBlanc pivot. This did not work, and they clinched. Godfrey fought fast and furious in the 10th round. Smith again tried to pivot punch and caught Godfrey on the neck. A claim of foul was made. From this time until the 23rd round, Godfrey landed on Smith as often when he pleased. The latter was a thoroughly game man, though, and he made several rallies. Denver Ed Smith was a brute force, bleeding, battered, and no quit as he continuously hanged in there against Godfrey's assault. Smith fell several times. Godfrey kept rushing his man to the ropes, but Smith did not appear to mind the terrific punishment. He was too slow for Godfrey, and it was apparent that his only hope would be a chance wild blow knockout. In the 23rd round, Jaron Dunn ordered them to go to the corners. I am satisfied from what I had seen that Godfrey is the better man, and give Godfrey the decision. I am not a beaten man, said Smith. I can go on for another hour, but he did not look it. The winner received $1,800, the loser $200. Huge differences. So that story is a missing part of the thing. Let's see if we can find it in here. Okay, so here is from the newspaper of the 23rd round here. This is how the fight ends. Round 23. The men had scarcely came together when Godfrey landed a straight left-hander on Smith's head, which bounced backwards and struck the brick wall violently. As I stated previously, there was 3 sections of rope, and the brick wall made the 4th. Smith got up but appeared quite dazed. Godfrey was just about swinging for the finishing blow when the referee interfered and decided that Godfrey was the winner, as Denver Ed Smith clearly had suffered a concussion. So that's some rather important details to leave out of the story there. So that's why Smith is saying, I can still go on for an hour, as this is how tough he was. He literally smashed his head against the brick wall and got up and was ready to continue. I mean, this guy is a brute force. So this was one of the most heroic efforts of all time. It basically took 23 rounds, and Godfrey took a serious smashing to his eye in order to claim victory on this night, as Denver Ed Smith proves extremely formidable in the loss, as he was a very tough customer, and the newspaper described as there was no gamer man than that of Denver Ed Smith. So as we close out the story here, the winner of this match was going to be destined for a huge payday against Jake Kilrain. And it would have been absolutely fabulous to see 2 brute force, old school tough guys such as Denver Ed Smith face against Jake Kilrain. So Kilrain in the next match with Godfrey tries to do exactly what Denver Ed Smith was doing. Instead, he was allowed to wrestle, hit on the brakes, and basically use London rules, as he repeatedly threw Godfrey to the ground, but he was unable to get disqualified as the referee was not going to stop the bout no matter what. So we were so close to having Denver Ed Smith versus Jake Kilrain, as that would have been a great war of two very, very tough hombres to facing each other. So that's how close we were. But instead, the winner was Godfrey, and Godfrey goes on to lose to Jake Kilrain in a 44-round finish fight, as those were for massive amounts of money, as Godfrey is making a substantial sum in his career here. As you could see that I think his share was $1,800, and Denver Smith only got $200, which is not very much to get your head cracked open in a brick wall. So that was our reading tonight, and the next reading I'm going to do is going to be one of the most epic fights of all time, is probably one of the premier matches of the entire decade. George Godfrey versus Joe Choyinski in a fabulous war that you just won't believe. That'll be the next fight I do here, and then we will go into George Godfrey's boxing profile.